It was Friday, December 29, 2006. Deep inside one of the most secretive, heavily guarded prisons in Baghdad, a man lay on death row, isolated, watched and waiting. He had less than 24 hours to live, though no one had yet told him. His name was Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein was a bad guy.
بالإعدام شنقا حتى الموت لارتكاب العمد كجريمة ضد الإنسانية دلالة المادة 11 أولاً ثانياً.
For nearly a quarter of a century he ruled Iraq with an iron hand. From 1979 to 2003, a reign defined by absolute power, mass executions, ruthless political repression, and the use of chemical weapons against civilians. Once feared, once untouchable, the former dictator was now confined to a narrow cell, stripped of authority, his empire reduced to silence and concrete walls. The clock was running out. These were the final hours of Saddam Hussein. If you are just finding this channel, welcome to Creepy True Cases. Take a second to like and subscribe. Now let's begin. It all began in a small concrete cell, located miles from residential areas, in a place where no one knew even existed. Saddam Hussein woke up like every other day, complained of a backache, and carried on with his morning ritual, which was usually self-reflection in silence and rummaging through his things. He was not like any other prisoner. He was of the highest priority. After his capture in December 2003 by the U.S. forces, while hiding out in a spider hole close to Tikrit, he was first placed in a U.S.-run, Iraqi-controlled detention facility called Camp Cropper. Camp Cropper was used to hold high-value detainees and also held senior Ba'ath Party officials. Saddam was kept in solitary confinement for extended periods to avoid any form of communication that could lead to pushback. He spent 3 years in Camp Cropper, but his identity was kept a secret for obvious reasons, to protect his life and the lives of others. Saddam had lived under heavy 24/7 security and predictable routines, regular meals, medical care, access to religious materials, and legal counsel whenever necessary. However, on the 29th of December, he was surprised when a team of special forces, known as the Super 12, came into his prison cell to inform him that he was being moved. Saddam paused a bit as if to ask a question, then he changed his mind. There had been signs of what was to come, but he hadn't put much thought into it. First, his lawyers had come to visit, then his family came, and what made it even more suspicious was when 2 of his half-brothers came to see him as well. This very rare visit revealed that something was going to happen in the coming days, but he never got a single hint about what was to come. His last 3 years being guarded by the U.S. military had been precautionary, ensuring that no external forces could interfere until final sentencing. Multiple layers of security prevented rescues or assassination attempts. During Saddam Hussein's tenure as the president of Iraq, he conducted systemic arrests, tortured, and executed his political opponents. He targeted intellectuals, dissidents, and journalists. The 1982 Dujail massacre was only one of his atrocities. From 1986 to 1989, he led a military campaign that led to destruction and bloodshed. His legacy was one of corruption and blood. Saddam's defense attorney, Najib al-Nuaimi, had predicted that the execution may be scheduled for the 30th of December 2006. He did everything he could to stay the case, but with no luck. Najib's prediction had become a reality. The execution was going to happen the next day. Saddam sat on a mattress in solitary confinement, completely unaware of what fate had in store for him. His meal was lobster tails, delivered fresh from the Coalition Cafe. This would be his final meal. He had become a much calmer and softer person in captivity. He often made jokes about his weight, considering how much weight he had gained. He had also become close to those around him, the guards, the security detail. They were the ones he saw every day, so he would often ask them about their day and even said good night before bed. As he retired to bed, the lights dimmed and there was silence. Not even the sound of the usual radio news could be heard. Eshiti Chris Battaglia, one of the officers in charge, made sure to disrupt Saddam's radio, just in case the news of his execution was announced on air. At around 3 a.m. on the 30th of December 2006, Saddam Hussein's cell door swung open, and the lights suddenly came on. First Lieutenant Andre Jackson walked into Saddam's cell with his interpreter. Jackson was tasked with the responsibility of prepping him for the execution. He spoke clearly and succinctly, "It's time." Saddam appeared to be calm, unprovoked. The weight of the message weighed heavily on the interpreter, who had come to view the dictator as a friend after 15 months of interaction with him. The execution date was significant for many of Saddam Hussein's supporters, as it was deemed to be a sacred holiday for them. This sparked criticisms with claims that the execution wasn't just about justice, but also about another agenda, as this was as close to humiliation as it could get. However, the new government, which was made up of opposition, welcomed the new development and viewed it as a victory for their democracy. After Saddam was left in his cell to prepare, he requested to bathe in his cell, a request which was granted under close supervision. Amidst the shattering news of a looming, Saddam took his time to prepare, adorning himself in his favorite suit that he mostly reserved for public appearances. He then doused himself in so much cologne, the guards around glanced at each other without a word. He sieved through his belongings, suits, books, and a few essentials. It was all that he was allowed to own. A man who had once owned territories, servants, houses, and literally anything he wanted was now staring down at a few personal effects that would likely be returned to family or disposed of upon his demise. He summoned one of the guards and, in a final act of generosity or perhaps kindness, he offered his most prized possession, a Raymond while wristwatch, to the guard. The guard knew he wasn't supposed to accept gifts from a high-profile prisoner, but after a few words of persuasion from a man whose fate was sealed, the soldier accepted the gift with the mindset of doing whatever it took to avoid conflict. A few minutes later, the special forces arrived to transport Saddam Hussein. He walked up to them without fear and expressed his readiness as he was led to the helicopter. He was to be transported to Camp Justice, Al-Qadamiyya, a secure location in Baghdad used by Iraqi authorities for high-security executions. The facility was chosen for its security and secrecy, closed to the media and international observers. American soldiers patrolled the perimeter, while Iraqi troops manned the gallows. It was an Iraqi operation, and the Americans were not allowed to take part in it. Saddam Hussein was escorted out of the armored vehicle and led to the gallows, where the exchange was made with Iraqi soldiers. Saddam was handed to the Iraqi National Security Advisor, Moaffaq al-Rabi, a man who had once been imprisoned and tortured under the Saddam Hussein regime. Now he was on the other side of the table, leading his former oppressor to his execution. This was the final chapter to a life that had been riddled by controversy. Saddam refused to wear a hood, as was the standard for execution by hanging. As if things couldn't get any worse for the dictator, Shiite officials who were present at the gallows began to chant mockingly, "Muqtada! Muqtada!" in reference to Muqtada al-Sadr, a Shiite and militia leader who had violently opposed Saddam Hussein during his regime. This was a final show of power, reminding the dictator that they had not only prevailed, but they saw to his end. Saddam Hussein stood firm, resolute, and unmoved by their chants. Insults were thrown at him from all sides as he tried to maintain his poise. After several minutes, the procession began with a declaration of faith. The trapdoor was opened, and Saddam Hussein hung for several minutes, and at 6 a.m. he was declared dead. Saddam's death was followed by widespread celebration by those who had been deeply affected by his reign of terror. His imprisonment marked the first time an Arab head of state was tried and executed by his own country after foreign intervention. The execution itself was controversial and widely debated internationally. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.